With the assumptions we built up in the previous video, we can go ahead and take a look at what the demand and supply curves are going to look like under perfect competition. On the left-hand side, we have the market demand curve. So this is going to include all the buyers and all the sellers for this particular good. And we notice that it's the typical downward sloping demand curve, typical upward sloping supply curve, and it's going to follow the same analysis that we've laid out with our supply and demand analysis. At the intersection of supply and demand, we have an equilibrium price of $200 and the equilibrium quantity industry output of QE. So nothing changes with the market demand and supply curves under perfect competition. However, what does change is what the individual firm's demand curve does look like. Here, you notice that it's going to be a horizontal line exactly at the market equilibrium price. And that's exactly why firms under perfect competition are going to be seen as price takers. They take the price that is seen on the marketplace, so $200 here, and that is the price that the individual firm is going to have to charge. So $200 in this case as well. And at this $200 at the market equilibrium price, you notice that the individual firm's demand curve is going to be horizontal. It's perfectly elastic in this case. So that's going to be one of the key features that we hone in on. That's probably the first thing that you noticed in this example. The second thing that you're going to notice is that the demand is equal to MR. So what does MR mean for us? That's something we'll get to very, very shortly. It means marginal revenue. And then the third thing that we're going to note is that this firm can sell as much output as it wants at that market equilibrium price. It can sell Q1 units, it can sell Q2 units, it can sell 1,000 units, 1,000,000 units. It can sell as many units as it wants at that market equilibrium price. So three things that we want to note about the individual firm's demand curve operating under perfect competition. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit more with this graphical analysis. Graphical analysis. And remember that this horizontal demand curve that we have right here is only going to be true under perfect competition. When we talk about the other market structures, we're going to see exactly why it's going to change and why it's going to be different. So point number one with this graphical analysis for that firm working under perfect competition, we notice that the demand curve for individual firms is horizontal. So demand curve for individual firms, individual firms is horizontal. So once again, it's perfectly elastic at that case. And that stems from the fact because they are price takers, so they have to see the price, the equilibrium price on the marketplace, and that is the price that they are going to charge. So here, equilibrium price of 200, and that's what every single firm is going to charge, that equilibrium price 200. So therefore, perfectly elastic, it is horizontal in this case. So horizontal demand curve. Point number two, the firm can sell as much product as it wants at that market equilibrium price. So point number two, firm can sell as much product as it wants, at that market equilibrium price. At market equilibrium price. So point number two, the firm can sell as much product as it wants at the market equilibrium price. So once again, take a look at the graph. It can sell exactly Q1 units, it can sell Q2 units, so maybe this is 10 units, maybe Q2 is say 20 units, but it can sell basically an infinite amount of product at once at that market equilibrium price. Remember, it can't raise the prices, say to $201 because they are seen as price takers, and they're not going to want to lower their price, say to $199 in order to undercut all the other firms because it can sell exactly as much as it wants. So here, horizontal demand curve, and it can sell as much product as it wants. And in order to tie in the third and final point, we want to introduce the concept of MR right here, so marginal revenue. So what does marginal revenue mean for us? It's just the additional revenue that the firm is going to get by selling one more unit of this good. So here, formally, it's a change in total revenue that results from the sale of one additional unit of a product. Remember that total revenue is price times quantity, and marginal revenue is going to be the change in total revenue divided by the change in quantity. Remember, these deltas here, they essentially tell us that we're looking at some type of difference or some type of change. With marginal revenue, we notice that marginal revenue equals to demand, and that's going to lead us to our third point. So let's go ahead and do an example of the marginal revenue in order for us to segue to the third point. So here, take a look at the example with marginal revenue. So suppose that you sell some particular item for $200 each. So suppose you sell, let's use a burgers example. So 10 burgers. I'm pretty hungry. So if you sell 10 burgers at $200 each, $200 each. How much is your total revenue under this case, under these numbers right here? We take the equation for total revenue, price times quantity. So total revenue is going to be price, $200, times quantity, 10 burgers. So therefore, your total revenue is equal to $2,000. However, you want to go ahead and see what the total revenue is going to be for the 11th burger that you sell. So you want to go ahead and see exactly how much additional revenue are you going to receive by selling one more burger. So that marginal revenue there. So question that we want to ask is, what is the marginal revenue of the 11th burger you sell? Of the 11th burger you sell. So remember, in order to solve this out, we can go ahead and use the equation for marginal revenue, the change in total revenue divided by the change in quantity. So we just figured out the total revenue for 10 burgers, is $2,000. So price times quantity, very easy for us to figure out. The total revenue for 11 burgers is going to do the same exact methodology. Price times quantity, it's going to be 11 burgers times $200. So 200 times 11, that'll give us $2,200. So remember, the firm is selling as much product as it wants at that same exact constant price, the constant equilibrium price. So now that we have enough information, we can go ahead and find the marginal revenue for us going from 10 burgers to 11 burgers. Equation for marginal revenue, change in total revenue divided by the change in quantity. What is the change in our total revenue? We went from 2,000 to 2,200. So therefore, the difference between these two numbers is our change in total revenue. 2,200 minus 2,000. If you want to do the long way, that's going to be our numerator. And the denominator is going to be the change in our quantity. So we went from 10 burgers to 11 burgers. That's just going to be a difference of 1. Simplify as much as you can. It's going to be 200 over 1. So therefore, our marginal revenue is equal to $200. And what exactly do you notice about our marginal revenue? Our marginal revenue is the same exact as the market price, the market equilibrium price that we see right here. And that is essentially going to lead us to point number 3 for us in terms of this graphical analysis. The third point is the marginal revenue is always going to equal the price, which equals the demand curve for perfect competition, for firms operating under perfect competition. And this is something that we're only going to see under this market structure. So point number 3, we notice that marginal revenue equals price, which equals the demand curve for perfect competition. And this is only going to be true under this market structure. So MR equals the price equals to demand. So 3 things that are exactly equal to one another. If the firm wants to sell one more unit of a particular product, all we need to go ahead and do in order to figure out the marginal revenue is just to take a look at that market price. Because remember, they are price takers. They have to take the prices as given. So 3 features of the graphical analysis that we did for the firm working under perfect competition. Number 1, we have a horizontal demand curve. It's perfectly elastic at that market equilibrium price. Number 2, the firm can sell as much of the product it wants at that market price, whether it be 1 unit to say an infinite amount of the product. And then point number 3, we notice that marginal revenue equals the demand curve, which also equals the market price. And that is only going to be true under perfect competition. This right here, this condition will not be true under our next market structures, so do be aware of that. These 3 characteristics are only going to be seen under the perfectly competitive type of market structure, so do keep that in mind. We'll go ahead and work with a few more specific examples of perfect competition in the short run in the next few videos.